You probably wonder who I am. I'm Mrs. Carol Mankitti. I was married to Ifani, and our family has taken over the ownership of the store. So I welcome you in behalf of our family and in behalf of these wonderful poets that are reading tonight. So thank you for being here on such a cold night. And thank you. Is there a camera? Yeah. Thank you for being present virtually. Enjoy. I'm sure you will.
Sam Cha is from Korea. He earned an MFA at UMass Boston, a 2017 recipient of the St. Boltoph's Club Emerging Artists Prize. His work has appeared in Apt, Assay, Best New Poets 2016, Boston Review, Diagram, Memorious, and Missouri Review. His chapbook, American Carnage, was published by Portable Press at Yo-Yo Labs in 2018. His full-length collection of cross-genre work, The Yellow Book, was published by PANK Books in 2020. Sam lives and writes in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's my pleasure to welcome Sam Cha.
Hi. Unsure whether I should stand or sit and what to do with my glasses, which keep slipping down off my face. And I'm going to unmask now because, well, I'm going to mask and also stand back, I guess. So I'll read some stuff from my book. And then because I'm kind of sick of reading from my book, I'll read other things. And I'll talk about them as they come out. And I don't think I'm going to read all of what I brought, but we'll see. So I'll start at the beginning of my book. And this book is sort of lots of memoir-ish, essay-ish things interspersed with poetry. So this one starts out sort of on a light note. It's called Yet Another Origin Story, but with punchlines. 11 years ago, I'm standing in line at the Taco Bell / KFC near Central, which doesn't exist anymore. There's a Whole Foods there now, or Sweet Greens, or some other place with cornstarch plastics and paper bowls and compostable straws. But 11 years ago, I've ordered my grilled stuffed burrito and my popcorn chicken, and everything smells like America. With the natural cumin flavoring and the synthetic essence of nacho and the universal hamburger scent that they developed in a lab in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and the royal chrism of the natural frying grease and the holy mystery of the 11 herbs and spices, I'm standing next to the counter waiting for my order, looking straight ahead. Straight ahead like one does when one's grown up awkward and bookish and quiet and at different ages alternately overweight and skinny. This is how I do it. Don't look at me, coming off me in great protective psychic waves. This is how you camouflage yourself when you're not a chameleon or an octopus or a squid or a walking stick, when you haven't evolved protective coloring, the skin that looks like bark, the flower petals that look like eyes, the markings on your wings that give you a second fearful face. This is how you protect yourself, the secret that we all knew when we were 4. They can't see me if I can't see them. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. We're to be unamplified without a mic, or without a sound system. Except it never works. I can't turn off my peripheral vision. You and your girl walk in the door. I can't turn off my hearing. I hear your girl order a bucket of chicken, 10 pieces, crispy without the biscuits, but with potato wedges. The follicles and their tiny bundles of nerves and muscles and glands still gather their chemical words, smell of malt liquor. Whenever anybody moves near me, a field of static touches each light hair on my arm and gently teases and pulls. My skin senses changes in light and heat and temperature and tightens or loosens. Some sort of fight or flight thing, old primate impulses welling up like the black crude of abandoned wildcat wells. But it's too late. Too late to ignore you, too late to run away, too late to pretend that I can't hear you or see you or feel you. You're already leaning towards me, swaying gently in the old English scented breeze. You're already saying, hey man, you know you look like Jackie Chan? You're grinning. You're completely innocent. You're unmalicious. You think you've just given me a huge compliment. You're drunk and you're young, early 20s maybe. You're young and skinny and drunk off the feeling of the girl holding your arm, the girl's breath on your shoulder, and you're happy. You're looking forward to a long night at home, eating KFC and Taco Bell, licking fire sauce off your fingers, kissing your girl, watching TV, getting drunk, getting stoned, having sex, licking sex off your fingers, waking up to too bright sun, an empty bottle, and full bladder, and headache, and cold tacos, but a full belly, and muscles sore from fucking, and what could be better? I've been there, friend. I have. We're brothers. I don't have it in me to get angry. It's near midnight, and I'm off to see my friends, and it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And so I let you continue. You look like Jackie Chan, man. I love that guy. He's the bomb. So funny. You really mean it. So I nod. I say, oh, thanks. Yeah, I like Jackie Chan too. Yep, he's pretty great. You say, I'm serious, man. You poke your girl in the ribs. Hey, come on. Doesn't he look like Jackie Chan? She turns her head towards me, gives me a good long up and down, smiles, slow as sunrise. Yeah, she says. Yeah, he does. And you get so excited because your girl's just told you that she sees the same things that you do, which means that you share a reality, a universe, a cosmology. And so you repeat yourself. Jackie Chan, he's so good. That motherfucker's so fast, so funny. To me, you say, man, you sure you're not related? You sure you're not Jackie Chan? Honestly, I say, I don't even know. Punchline. I was walking around downtown Crossing. A man in a Red Sox cap staggered up to me, weaving slightly. Hey, he said. Hey, you know you look like Dice K. Punchline. Hey, Dice K, you got a quarter? He slurred. I walked away. Well, fuck you, said Sox Cap. Fuck you, Dice K, you pitch like shit. I pitched him a finger. Ching chong, sang Sox Cap. Trochees make everything sound like music. I kept walking. Punchline. What got me extra pissed off? He thought I was Japanese. Ching chong isn't even the right slur. Punchline. I was in a bar in Cambridge, Shays, down the road. A tipsy man leaned over, iron gray, blue-eyed, jaw-lined, crow's feet, a Harvard species. Kennedy School? Business school? Hey, he said. You know you look like Seiji Ozawa. Punchline. I was sitting outside in Harvard Square. I was reading a story by Jack London, which he wrote in 1909. In the story, The Unparalleled Invasion, he called it, Jack London imagines the year 1976. In Jack London's 1976, China has become a world power by dint of fecundity and duplicity. London's Chinese immigrate constantly, insidiously, in drips and drabbles, caravans and caravels and cars. Then they invite more Chinese who are armed. The great powers of Europe cannot hold on to their colonies, and any attempt to recapture them is rendered futile, and the Chinese just keep multiplying. There were 2 Chinese for every white-skinned human in the world, London writes. And the world trembled, he writes. But an American, read white, scientist has an idea. Alas, plucky, forlorn hope. a way to finally solve the Chinese conundrum. The last armies and fleets of the West / whiteness gather before the Black Gates, form an armed ring around Angband, fly a UFO up to the mothership, buzz the Death Star, blockade China. Then they fly an airship over Beijing. From the airship, they drop glass vials filled with pathogens, malaria, smallpox, bubonic plague. They wait. They patrol the borders. They shoot any and all refugees. They sink every ship. Punchline. London writes this as a happy ending, this sanitation of China. It was a vast and happy intermingling of nationalities that settled down in China in 1982 and the years that followed. A tremendous and successful experiment. Punchline, in other words, America. There is more punchlines. There's a long punchline where the granddaughter of a Civil War general gets murdered, and then her Chinese American lover gets blamed for it, and then many Asian Americans are lynched, which actually happened. And then the last line of that punchline is there's a reporter asking the father of the daughter what he thinks the moral of the story is. And the last line is, not to mix with other than their own people. So the next punchlines follow after that. Punchline. A shadow fell over the page as I wrote that last sentence. I looked up. The sun was in my eyes. Hey, the shadowy person said. Sunlight, shadow, flicker. Where are you from? Punchline. I'm from here, I said. Sometimes it's more truthful to lie. No, but where are you really from? She said. Punchline. None of your business? I snapped. Can't you see that I'm trying to work? Jesus, she said. No need to be rude, just making small talk. Well, I don't want to talk, I said. Go away. What are you? She said. Drunk? Punchline. I moved to a different table. She followed. Seriously, are you drunk? Are you fucking drunk? She said. Punchline. Where do you get off? She said, telling me what I can and can't say. Who do you think you are? Last I checked, this was a free country, free speech, asshole, she said. Punchline. Torchlight, shadow, flicker. Wolf gray or clean shorn, red capped, blue eyed. Where are you from? Where are you from? What are you? An American species? Are you drunk? How you slur your slurs, sirs, how you howl. In this forest of yourself, your Nathan Bedford thicket, your corpse copse, where you and we turn around and round like handcuffs, like noose. Jews will not replace us, you chant. Trochees make everything sound like music. Is this your so-called civilization? Your boomlay, 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 you will not replace us. If you're worried about birth rates, how about you just go fuck yourselves? Chorus of grimace, flash of fashy white veneers, how wide, how ugly your grin, your woodsman whiskers, wolves, your ginger snap sideburns, your white bread sneer, your clean cut fester, your witter and fleer. Will you devour us raw? Will you ripen us like pheasants? In your smokehouse of anpho and sulfur, in your hateful eat and ate and ate. a smallpox on all your confections, your 14 poisons, your don't be so sensitive, your houses of reprehensitives, your incomprehension, your build-a-wall workshops, your race and race and race. Your problem isn't that you're being replaced. You don't know your problem. You don't know your story. You don't know your place. I'm going to stop reading from the book there. I haven't read that much from the beginning before, so that was the thing. So I've been working on this project where there's a distant relative of mine who is a poet and artist named Teresa Hakgyong-cha. I don't know if you've heard of her, but like, so the deal is, you know, like Cha is a fairly uncommon surname in family name in Korea, and so all Chas are basically distant cousins. So I've been training an AI on her work and my work, and so now when I like feed the AI prompts, it spits out like reams of stuff that kind of sounds like both of us, like combined. And so every time I do that, like I get like 200 pages of stuff that I have to like edit down and like find like little bits that work. And so some of these are from that, like this first one. Audience, distant, relative, anthroposition, anthropology, antithesis. I'm trying to remember traits of history. Trace, how did I get here? Where's my moment? Where's the mother now? Where's the word? Where does the word come from? Where is it? When does the word come? From another moment, from far, afar from here. No interpolation, no cryptography, no commentary, no etymology. Where does my love come from? Where is my love? When? California, April, no such thing. All the time I had, as an inquisition concerning narrative, as a drumbeat, a string of unvoiced syllables, the days when I had no part in the plot, the days when I was merely a part of the moment, a part, a void, an imaginary, avoiding, if you were to spread them, those days, across a map, across a terrain, as if a eulogy, composed of unanswered emails, texts, the repetition of forget, as in all the myths, in the beginning there was a God, and then 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 there was a God, identical, inhuman, lacking the singing of the mother tongue, the tremble, the subtle alteration from generation to generation, in skin, in hair, in breath, in heartbeat, in bone, then it must be true that confession is both punishment and crime. Audience, distant, relative, I address you as I would a distant relative, as if a distant relative seen only, heard only through someone else's description. I was a stranger. I was a stranger to myself. I was depressed like a lot of people. History is a wonderful sport. I walked in the rooms of myself, rifled through a desk, small, cluttered with a Diet Coke, a plastic spider, 5 essays on the lyric, Scotch tape, a silver disc struck with the face of George Washington, mouth closed to hide his stolen teeth, a Pentium 4, an empty bag of Takis Fuego, a broken belt, a crumpled up index card scrawled with this works, this, writing as a child, writing away from self, writing away into the world, a battery, a folding knife, a heat sink, a stimulus check, orality and literacy, dead jewel pods, a journal of the plague year, and a sheaf of graph paper which spoke in the voices of the dead. Tiresias retains memory in the underworld, even without the gift of blood, milk, honey, water. The witch bends over his body, kisses him, and as she does so, mutilates his face, bites the tip of his tongue, pours whispered sounds between his dry lips to send a message down to Styx, from whence I came to suspect I was in fact Eurynomus, who eats the flesh of the dead, leaving only bones, black blue as a carrion fly, resting on a vulture pelt. If Hamlet is almost Hamnet, a stranger once told me, it's possible to confuse the playwright with the ghost. You are the audience. I've never read this one before. Good evening. I'm afraid. In the clouds, the words are changing. The words come in packets and packets go missing. I am missing. Morning, evening, afraid. A universe of disorientation. Are you who you are? Are you we? Are we the mirror image of us? How do we resume our bodies, the accustomed contours? Do you know what it is like to be born again? A quiet, cadaver-ridden paragnosis. Did you walk to the graves? Did you dig with teeth? Did you tear at the grass? Did you grind with fists? You and 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 you continue forever. You and 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 you continue forever. You are the audience. You are my mask. I am what you are. You are the audience. I am what you are. I am what you are. I am your skin. We are what you are. We are your skin. We are the same bone. Let's try and do one last one or a couple more. Actually, I have three things left. Do I have enough time?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is an American sonnet, which means it's 14 lines and doesn't have rhymes. March 16th, 2021. And this is about the Atlanta shootings because that's the date. Fuck the killer's name, all 7 syllables, 2.5 generic trochees, first, middle, and last. Stubby and dull as the blade of a gas station hunting knife. Dissolve its cheap pattern weld of history. Burn the shop-worn Norman French off the minor Old Testament prophet. Snap the Anglo-Saxon rat-tail tang. Toss the handle in the trash. Cart off the trash to a landfill surrounded by national forests. Let it sit there, undigested, stewing in methane and the meat juices of 1,000 Big Macs. Let the last starving timber wolf mistake it for a bone. Let it carry it off to the forest and choke. Let the forests burn in wildfires. Let the ashes sift into the feed trenches of factory farms, the Pepto-Bismol muck of hog lagoons. Let the people, unknowing, eat of the ashes of the name. Climate conference with sea stars and wildfires. This is another one that I haven't read before. I actually just found it on my hard drive today. I don't remember when I wrote it, but anyway, so there was a hole in the sky. Everyone was talking about it, everybody, as they sipped their Aperol, as the ice melted in the cocktail shakers. It was a great conversation. Everyone agreed. While the arms of the leather star twisted, stretched, tore, dragged themselves away. While the arms of the striped sun star twisted, stretched, tore, dragged themselves away. While the arms of the rainbow star twisted, stretched, tore, dragged themselves away. While the arms of the blood star twisted, stretched, tore, dragged themselves away. while the arms of the ochre star twisted, stretched, tore, dragged themselves away, while the arms of the sunflower star twisted, stretched, tore, dragged themselves away, like the man who, alone one night, decides to get high, and then when he gets high, feels like he's dying, and queasy and circle-brained, torso bobbing up and down, sits on the shitter and listens for the slowing of his heart. Has it stopped yet? Has it stopped? Did it skip, skip, skip? Goodbye. Goodbye to this body. Goodbye to the skin, to the mysterious effusions of the liver and pancreas, to the bitter machinery of the gallbladder. Goodbye, he says to himself, frantically rubbing one out. Goodbye, goodbye. Oh, good, good, oh, good, oh, bye. And by day, a pillar of smoke. A pillar and another, filling first the horizon, then blotting it out. And by night, a pillar of fire, a pillar and another, filling first the edge of the sky, then erasing the night. Which way out of the all too human world, Lord? Where do we go? Last one. Yet another thesis on the philosophy of history, which is a thesis on the philosophy of history is where Walter Benjamin writes the famous parable about the angel of history. So in the garbage then, in the crying, in the whale, stuffed like a beanie baby with atomies of coke, in the acid wash of lithium mines, in the shit lagoons of Smithfield, mauve and Tyrian from space, in the cul-de-sacs of quaint decades, in the half-mopped jizz stains of demolished peep shows, in the semi-amateur pro wrestling shows in certain city halls of southern New Jersey, in the stilt-legged worms of the Precambrian pressed between the slate pages of that late book, Our Earth, in every hour that does and doesn't return, permit us also to find home. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming out.
Tracy Fuad's first book of poetry won the Donald Hall Prize and was published in October by University of Pittsburgh Press. She is also the author of 2 chapbooks, PITH, published by Newfound in 2020, and Dad, 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 published by TxtBooks 2019. A graduate of the Rutgers-Newark MFA program, she is a 2021-22 writing fellow at the Provincetown Fine Arts Work Center and lives in Berlin, where she teaches at the Berlin Writers Workshop. It's my pleasure to welcome Tracy Fuad.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to sit, I think. Sam, that was incredible. I'm obsessed with that new project that you read from, and thank you for sharing that fresh work. And honestly, I feel like that's the most exciting poetry I've heard in a while. So very cool. Thank you everyone for being here for poetry, and thank you for having us. It's my first time at this bookstore, and it's such a special place. So I'll be reading a few poems from my new book. Like Sam, I'm also tired of reading from this book, so I'll be reading some newer work, including some, very fresh work. So let's start. Every day I get exciting emails. Every day I get exciting emails. I receive an interesting email every day. Every day I got an interesting email. I got an interesting email every day. There is a nice email every day. Every day has a good email. You have good emails every day. You have good emails daily. You are good for us every day. You are good every day. You're fine every day. Hi, everyone, every day. Hello, everyone, every day. Hello, every day. Hello, every day. Hello, every day. Thanks, every day. Thank you, each day. Daily. Every day. Every day. The day. The day. 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 A day. The sun. 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 The sun. Day. 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 That poem also somehow I think is in conversation with some of your algorithmically written poems, and yeah, we can talk more about the process. So I wrote a lot of this book while I was living in Kurdistan. And my Kurdishness is always complicated, so I'll give just a little backstory. This poem that I'll read next is called Report of the Excavation at Tel Sitec, and it borrows some language from an archaeological report from a dig in Sitec, which is the village where my grandfather was living until very recently. And so my Kurdish grandfather in the 50s left Kurdistan, and he chose the name Fuad to sound more Arab, to kind of hide the Kurdishness. And it's always funny to me that that's a name that still carries on, although it's a bit of a false name. My grandfather eventually ended up in the US and married an American woman, and then went back to Baghdad, to a town you probably know, a suburb of Baghdad, Abu Ghraib, which is where my father was raised with his sisters, and then in Kurdistan. And this is a lot of history. And then at some point there was a Kurdish uprising, and the kids were sent back to the US. And then the family was going to relocate to Libya, but then Gaddafi overthrew the Libyan king, and then my father ended up staying in the US in 74. And the first time I saw Sitec was actually on Google Earth, and it must have been when Google Earth was very new, because it was absolutely amazing when I must have been about 14 or 15, because it was after the US invasion of Iraq, which I think is the inciting event that made me aware of the fact that I was Kurdish, because I felt like I experienced it so much differently than the people around me. And then later I spent time in Sitec, and I think this experience of finding an archaeological document about this place, that weird tension. So that's the extended backstory of the poem and the book, which I've never given before, but yeah. Report of the Excavation at Tel Sitec. The shards found at Tel Sitec are mostly made of reddish earth, some containing small white grit or chalk-like temper. The site had been exposed during the dig to lay a concrete foot for a summer home here in the sloping hills of Kurdistan, which in springtime turned to Eden. where some say sheep and wheat first bent to human will. This land is always shrinking, loose earth sliding toward the floors of the valley, which makes me worry for the mountains, for erosion and an earth gone flat. There's no trace of the summer I spent here. A glitch of new condos flank the hillside, and when I ask in Halton Kurdish where the school is, everyone says there isn't one. 10 years ago, my grandpa says, my light was the only light the eye could see. Now that I've come back, he looks at me disdainfully, like I too am a condo and encroaching. The older something is, the deeper it is buried. The ruins here were further ruined by recent war and roots of oak, but still beneath remains of modern bombs, the dig reveals a fortress built by the Assyrians. Defensive walls of stone and 3 stone towers, a courtyard floor incised with flowers, baked bricks, a kiln, and iron slags. In a threshold, 3 jars of living earth and a fragment of a tablet pressed with wedges, a record of a sale of 7 fields. Even then, this land was bought and sold. I'm going to read a poem that I have never read because there was a request to read a poem in a language other than English. And a lot of these poems are in some ways found poetry. And when I was living in Kurdistan, really having a strive to learn Kurdish, I spent a lot of time reading various Kurdish dictionaries, all of which were somehow suspect. They were either written by Christian missionaries or they were written by this old Orientalist from Harvard, actually. I emailed him once, he never got back to me. And I became very obsessed with the sample sentences in that dictionary, which appear in various places. And this poem is kind of constructed from sample sentences. I guess I'll read it in Kurdish first. I'm always so shy to read in Kurdish, but I think no one here speaks Kurdish, so you won't know. And if I'm pronouncing it correctly or not. Yeah, it's a very beautiful poetic language that I think I will never quite feel that I can fully access, but still is special for me. This poem doesn't have a title. And it looks kind of like this. So there are couplets, the Kurdish and English side by side. Ruba Rabir Nada Birya au Karai Nakirdabaya Ba'am Shawa Lera Bebainesar Dastim Khenit Bezua Batundi Kasekam Pebiri Ugutim Namtwani Hichitir Bekam Rishikan Chakan Tawe Baran Nabir Rawaya. This river doesn't flow. Would that it hadn't been done. Let's spend tonight here. Blood has collected in my hand. I quickly interrupted and said, I couldn't have done anything else. The roots have sunk into the earth. The rain didn't cease for a time. Thank you. It's special to read that. So let me see. I'll read 2 more poems from the book, and then I'll read some newer work. see. www.curdchat.com. Beauty has joined this room. Beauty. Hello? Beauty has left this room. Okay, and this is a poem for my sweetie who came to my poetry reading in Kurdistan 3 years ago. And now we are legally wed. We think we got married. We kind of eloped on a sketchy website and they didn't really check our documents. And so we think we're married. And the backstory for this, besides our sketchy marriage, is the word for the color orange is the last color word to enter the English language. And for a long time, orange was either not referred to or referred to as a red yellow. And apparently it wasn't until the fruit, the orange, came to England that the color had its own name in English, which is crazy to think about. Really beautiful. A color named after a fruit. Before oranges were sweet, they were bitter. The whole world was bitterer then. Nights unlit, wheat wild, each element bound in its own rind. And then you were there in the rift cut out of mountain, your mouth with its triangle window. In the garden, the branches were dropping their blossoms, then bending with citrus, laden with sunweight. We could sit and watch the fruit go orange, the hue that moved through 5 tongues to get to ours. Let the moon go ochre, your milky teeth soft in my bared silk. A hummed line, the thrum of the primary colors. Beneath the pith, the pope. So this is a little chapbook that just came out in Berlin, and unfortunately, this is like my only copy, but hopefully it will be available at some point. And what's special about it for me is the inside cover has this art from this Kurdish American artist, Newfound, and I love her work. So it's kind of nice that it's like a hidden part of the book. It's in disguise. So these are poems that I've written in the last year, I guess. And yes, I'll read, I think this is the last poem in the book. 1001 Nights. I dreamt of this, yes, of a city in weather, another place where I am indecipherable, a pen with loose ink in my hand. When did I begin to have preferences? And when did what I tended to draw nearer to begin to blur? In the time since the internet was released for use beyond the US military, a crystallizing sense of self. Even as a new ease pervades the city, the horror of the painted vine atop the medical complex. Though the muted one, and from a balcony, a baby, and the small sound a person's body makes in the moment just before they speak. The sea consisting of meter, though my inability when asked to explain what I mean by tone. As many nights as I have opened, I have closed. Sometimes the premise really is too much to bear. I've come to think that I prefer my hair unbrushed, though I bought one at the market after learning more of others' habits. Here, a man holds a beer. Here, a man opens a beer with a beer while holding his phone to his ear with his shoulder while walking, every object and body in use. Already spent leaves drift on the poured cement sidewalk, fungally spotted. This unuprootable habit of ending with or, a softening at the end of every sentence, or every sentence made exchangeable. Once I had a lover who described the careful early touches as belonging to epistemology, a flat palm and investigative mode which both excited and repulsed me. Here, infants in tights and fitted bonnets wander the streets like serfs gone small with age. At this fungible cafe, I feel myself a reptile. My little face reflected in between the endless stream of images which aim to hook me. How few words I managed to extrude. Now the cherry blossoms wilt. Now the chestnut blooms are wilting. Now the azaleas are wilting. Is that corn? Ali asks of grass which grows long on the street between us, and I break into cartoonish imitation of my native language. Though my mother's remains remain at the morgue, though her death was in the summer and again it's summer. Once I was moved to great emotion by the last hours of a market on the last day of the year. Then everything else happened. Today I wear a dress and trot alone at home, unsure of whether to go out, though everyone is out. The trees I see are thirsty and I'd water them, but tonight there will be rain. I pant in hot excitement. I always say that I will stop this, but I do not, leading me to ask who it is commanding me, or how many of me are there. The smoke that I inhale clogs me. I can feel the clogging in the place from which speech starts. I take a lemon half to cure me, I fear though I finally taken up art. I produce faint paintings and hang them before my tolerant partner, the jade, furious rain in the wings. Against the hacking of the weed whacker, the neighbor who I've never met plays piano. Sometimes I sing unconsciously and sometimes from above she echoes me. Though the other neighbor, housebound, rings us daily and I go to pick up dark bread for her. And still again and again I become whole. How many words can you spell with 7 letters? I cradle my handy on average 95 times in a day, press my special whorl to open. Sesame. Open sesame. That old phrase of French Antoine inserted into tales he pulled from Arabic and sold. A node of traveling stories on which, as it crossed the continents, new layers accrued. Sesame, meaning fatty seed, from Akkadian Sama Samu, a crop grown at the margins where other crops refused to grow. A seed that traveled fastest language, a seed that rang exotically to European ears. When I search the sesame seed, I receive a local keto store. Sesame, open yourself. Thou buff, tan, or purple, thou tubular flower, your 4-lobed mouth, wanton pod that bursts when ripe, resisting harvest. No wonder I love you. The pod of me releasing my time seeds in my very middle, familial gold around my neck. Sesame, open. Sesame, sesame, close. And I'll close with this somewhere in between a draft and I'm not sure if it's finished, but it's a poem I've been working on. And it's a Provincetown poem. I've been living in Provincetown for 3.5 months. I haven't written very much there. There's construction outside my apartment, so, you know. We need to think about things a little more radically. For months, I've felt I'm not myself, but myself's assistant, toiling on myself's behalf, half here, half nowhere, as I soldier on through emails to myself's relatives and contacts. I write my grandfather to say I peeled and cubed the quinces from the tree in his new wife's ex-husband's home among the redwoods, where he moved at 92 because he was too old to live in Kurdistan in these times. It was green and white and looked like a pear, but it wasn't a pear. I emailed to say yes, no, and thank you, to say I read the book in the bath and liked it. We'll write back soon, I say to Dawn, to Lenny, who is pregnant. I write, I'm sorry I was late to the meeting. I know it's frustrating when you've planned your day around it, have planned your life around the life of meetings, are living a life of obligations. I do not mind all obligations. I like to be bound. Though as a rule, I'm bad at follow through, bad at doing what I say I'll do. I say I'll stretch. I say I'll write down my dreams. I say I'll stop melting my mind at either edge of sleep with a screen. I need a self-police, but not police. I need the opposite of police, not someone who grinds me out of my body, into the margins, into oblivion. I already scrape myself away daily, scrape the meat of my attention against the grater and tatter, disappear into the ether, into the nether of the internet. The internet thinks I want to have a baby, and I do. I'm trying to have a baby, and the internet knows because I ordered a bulk pack of sticks that I dip into pee to see what is happening in me, and the internet knows everything. We built it like that, with a godlike omniscience, a panopticon in which we split to become both watched and watcher. The first time I saw the O missing from God, I was 10 and rendered speechless. I had recently received my first failing grade on a test of the 10 Commandments. I was raised by skeptics to be skeptic, but believed in believing. I believed in circles, in the potency of future, in holes between places and times. I know nothing holy and will not. I didn't know where I came from, but I knew I would know its pitch and tenor when I heard it, and I hear it. What should I say? There's a part of me that isn't me. What I thought was rain on my roof was the kettle warming. What I thought was a pile of rocks on the far spit of sand was a young whale strangled in nets and washed up. What I thought was morning was 20 minutes past noon. The tide was rising and I was late to my meeting with no one. The humpback whale was gray and white where its skin had come off, which it had, revealing what looked like a sort of foam. I wished to believe that the whale was a prop on a set about human catastrophe, but it wasn't. Or this was the set and we were all living in it. I refused to strike out the violence from the body of language I've inherited. Soldier, police. The body of the whale will take a long time to decay. The stench of flesh was very strong. The hard white flesh of quince turned ruby as I boiled it down with sugar into jam. When the self finally appears, don't turn yourself away. Thank you so much.
Brief Q&A.
Sure. Over where? Right here? All right. But you have to ask questions for this. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
We don't need them.
Yeah.
Sure, we need you actually.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about the algorithm that you set up, or your process, or like when you get the block of text, what are you following, and or I'm just curious like what it feels like for you, because
Right.
it feels so like contact with a relative.
So there's a sort of number of metaphors that I use to sort of like keep sort of like tell the story of what I'm doing to myself, I guess. And so one of them is, like the metaphor of contact, the metaphor of like, I'm doing a seance. I am like, it's a Ouija board, like James Merrill's Ouija board in the Changing Light at Sandover, if you guys know that. So that's one thing. The other thing that the other metaphor that I sort of return to is in some ways it feels like I'm sort of outsourcing a part of my dreaming to this algorithm. So I guess it allows me to sort of like play around with things and mess around in ways that I might normally not, like sort of frees me from the constraints of like, oh, this has to make sense. This has to connect. This has to have a central character that's consistent. This has to not repeat itself over and over again. And so that's it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I mean,
Okay.
it just was stunning to me because it did make sense. Sometimes it felt like it made the most sense of anything I've read or heard in a while. And yeah, I don't know. I just really liked it.
Thank you. That said, like it's really hard. Like I feel like it's harder than like the writing that I normally do. Like it's just so much stuff that I have to wade through and sort of like pick. So yeah. So like the was that sort of like your process in the Kurdish poem? Like you said, it was a lot of it was found poetry.
Yeah.
So were so many of those sort of example sentences in the dictionary that you were talking about, or dictionaries?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also a lot of, I mean, the dictionary is like a 200-page PDF. I don't know how many entries exactly, but yeah,
right.
So much material, and then definitely wading through it. But it, in this way, it's freeing. I mean, sometimes those phrases were just so haunting and stunning, like they would get stuck in my head, and
right.
It felt like was sort of contact, and I mean, it is contact with this, where those phrases were coming from. A lot of them were pulled from Kurdish literature, so they weren't random. They were not constructed, or however they were constructed, they were coming from this like real place, and it was a strange way to travel or to make contact with the language. It felt
Yeah.
so revealing to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's I mean there's a way in which, you know, that's sort of what we're always trying to do, right? You know, it's like trying to make contact with some sort of, you know, it sounds really woo-woo when you say it, like, you know, like you're trying to make contact with a language entity, but it's a persistent metaphor for reason in culture, right? It's like, you know, that's what the muse is, right? That's, you know, what Coleridge's, like, you know, wind blowing through the alien harp is. That's what Jack Spicer's Martian radio is.
Yeah.
It's what Yeats's ghosts are. So
thank you so much for attending, everybody. Let's give another round of applause. January 26th, which is about 2 weeks from now, it is Sarah Beckman, Livia Menigan, and Angelo Mao will be reading in the store, or you can attend virtually. The poets will be sticking around to sign some books. We have some books for sale. Thank you so much for coming. If everyone could move their chairs up against the wall, that would be.
Thank you. That was such a nice Q&A. I liked having that with you. Very gracefully, right?
I mean, really photograph if you could.
Sure, yeah,
That was a
sure.
Wonderful reading. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
thanks for putting it together.
No, absolutely.
Should we take our masks off for the
We'll do
photo?
one
We'll
with
do one
masks
with
and
and
one
without.
without.
Okay.
Beautiful. Okay, we'll know with that if you guys are comfortable.
Sure.
Hold your breath. No.
Thank you.
Hope we're posting this
Thank you so much,
soon.
James.
Oh, thank you, Tracy.
Thanks for
Thank you,
having
Sarah.
us.
Oh, it was such a great first event of 2022.
Oh, I thought so too.
And it's the first in-person reading that I've done in years.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it the first in-person one for the book, or did you get any before that?
When did your book come out exactly?
Early 2020.
Wow, yeah.
Wait, was it early 20? I don't even.
What's time? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Something like that.
How long are you in Provincetown?
The fellowship goes until May 1st, and then I'm back to Berlin. So
Oh, wow.
if you're ever in Berlin or want to visit, let me know. I'll be there. What's the status of the new project? Is it heading towards manuscript zone or?
It's pretty far from manuscript, so I think still like I have lots more stuff to do on it. I mean,
I'm
chipping away at it.
I love it. I'm a huge fan. I will like be in line to read it, or I'd love to read any of it that you're working on or whatever. Are you using GPT-3 or
Two.
GPT-2? Okay, cool. Cool, super cool.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Like, thank you so much. I was so excited by your work and really excited.
I really appreciate it. Yeah. I think I have your email. Do I have? Or you?
No, what? I'll email you.
Sure. Sam.
Okay. Mine is like not quite that easy, so it's Sam at now you have my email.
Great. Cool.
Thank you. Hi. I did not even recognize you. I really did not recognize. I mean, that never helps.
I saw. I felt that I couldn't make the last one because I had that class. I saw it on Facebook. I You guys will, you'll be excited.
So we could travel here.
Yeah. I got, it's been a while since.
It's been a while since I caught up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a long time, right? Yeah. But you got married too.
I did, yeah. But we drive, I literally drive this road. I was on this one. And I drive by this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just drove here from
Yeah, it's a nice area. It's just, I feel like the winter time is probably pretty.
Yeah, so it was so cold. I mean, it's like we went through out a lot. And then
It was very, that's like a. That's a
I mean, you don't know the drive out for hours. Yeah, really.
It's a lot.
Too long, but kind of for overnight. The Chelsea's are a while.
Yeah, they live on the.
Yeah. About an hour. They're like halfway.
Hollis and I were down.